Hey folks, it's Teo Sager here. Thank you for stopping by my channel, Selling with Teo. For today's episode, we'll be going over the market data and how the housing market's reacting to the COVID-19 outbreak, as well as looking back at the past 12 months so we can basically have a baseline to go off of. That being said, this specific episode is geared to those who are interested in West Hollywood. We'll be starting off with single family homes first, then we'll be moving on to condos. I find that using Teradata, which is a software that I use, it helps being specific because you get more of an accurate outlook on the data. But other than that, we'll begin. Oh, and if you have any other interests in regards to what data you want to see, whether it's a specific city, maybe a different county, or perhaps a zip code, feel free to drop me a comment below, or if you have any comments in general, I love to hear them. Let's begin. So the first graph we come up is the medium sold price by month. So medium sold price is down 26% as opposed from last March. This is West Hollywood City. It's going to be interesting as I'm seeing this just because in the spring and summer markets, the medium sold price is lower. This is probably indicative of specific luxury properties. West Hollywood does have a very big luxury market in and of itself. You have above the Sunset Boulevard, you have the homes near Melrose, you have near Normal Triangle. So it depends on what's happening in those small neighborhoods as well. That's sort of going to dictate this graph. So yeah, we'll move on. Medium for sale versus medium sold. So this graph basically takes the first graph and puts it up against a medium for sale price. So essentially here, I am reading this graph as sort of conversations that sellers and listing agents are having about their properties and how they should be priced. And there's not that much discrepancies. There might be a few outliers in terms of certain properties that do sell during that time frame. The higher you go, the more you have to wait for it to sell because you're going to have a less buyer demand, specifically in single family homes too. Whether you're above Sunset Boulevard or your Normal Triangle, there definitely can be expensive units over there. Let's go to sold properties by month. Sold properties is up 100% as opposed to March. So we're going to go ahead and click this number, 23 units. So 2 extra homes were sold in March. A lot of it happens in May. Yeah, so you have the spring and summer markets. You have September, which is interesting. I'm assuming people jumped into escrow in August and wanted to move in the fall just so they can probably get their kids in, West Hollywood elementary schools and so forth. So it's going to be interesting looking back once we are in May and looking back in April's data. April and May are going to be your prime opportunities and windows to sell because those markets are always the hottest in terms of time. Yeah, so we'll definitely revisit this. If you have any thoughts about how the market might turn out in terms of next month, the next 2 months, feel free to leave me a comment. But we'll move into the next graph. This one, under contracts by month. So the number of under contracts is down by 60%. I'm basically assuming that this whole COVID-19 market and the volume that we're experiencing or going to experience is going to reflect what we experience for December, November markets. So yes, November here. We've had a lot of activity during Thanksgiving. I always stress to buyers, those are good times to buy because again, you have less competition. And I still have that opinion as well, even when it comes to participating in this market. So this graph right here is going to be the graph that shocks me the most out of all the data that I'll look over. New properties by month means new listings. As opposed to March 19 when there was no pandemic of last year, there's 10 new listings this year. So there are 2 more listings than that of last year. So 10 sellers and listing agents decided to put their properties, single family homes, on the market. That says a lot. So it still says that there's still going to be activity regardless what's happening. And yes, we're still going to comply with state and federal regulations in regards to social distancing and so forth. But that's very fascinating to me because that's 10 different conversations of where people have said, yes, I will list my property now and have the endurance to stick to it. So we'll move into the next graph. The next graph is for sale properties by month. So the for sale properties by month is down 22%. Let's go ahead and click the units button. Down 22%. So as you can see here, there were 51 units that were last year. So these conversations that sellers and listing agents are having, including myself, is how motivated are you to sell, and in what way do you want to approach the market? Do you want to put your listing on hold? Do you want to cancel? Do you want to withdraw on it? So a lot of conversations were had in regards to those pre-existing listings and what they're planning to do. But 10 new listings are hitting the market, which as a seller, you have less competition just because there's already an inventory problem that we have. So, and you have less buyers, but still buyers are still participating. It's only 11 unit difference, which again, it reflects like November, December. You know, as I mentioned previously, I feel like we're going to be experiencing a winter holiday market with regard to the COVID-19. So we'll go to expired properties by month. So this graph basically reflects conversations with their sellers and the duration of those contracts and when those contracts expire. It's more relevant to agents and myself, not necessarily relevant to COVID-19. So we're going to skip this one altogether. So this graph I love because the supply and demand definitely puts a picture in regards to what the activity has happened from the last 12 months. And we'll definitely revisit this back in May to look back from April, and then in June to look back from May and so forth. But it just right then and there, it just shows you demand is still here. Demand from March is still present. Also, it could maybe reflect that a lot of folks were just trying to wrap up their escrows in February, and if anybody had 45 or 60-day escrows, that they just tightened them up. But the demand is still here. The average days on market by month is down 90%. So as I mentioned in the previous graph, when you have external circumstances that are sort of lighting a fire underneath you, you're going to want to wrap those escrows and those files up, especially when financing and mortgages are being threatened due to the market and how volatile it is, especially with the jumbo loan market in of itself. And when you are buying in West Hollywood, you probably are getting a jumbo loan. You're going to want to make sure that you can be able to close those files. So that's basically what I'm seeing right here. It's going to be interesting to go move into the other months to see how long this plays out in regards to how many days on market you are going to be, just because it's now even taking longer to close escrows. So quite the opposite is happening, or what you expect to happen. However, I write competitive terms, especially when there's multiple buyers, or maybe I like to appeal to certain circumstances, whether I like for having my sellers to have more time during escrow just so they can move out, or whatever it may be. Even as a buyer's agent, I like to have a pulse and see how we can appeal to people's motivations and how we can make that valuable in our offer. So we'll hit the last graph, which is month supply of inventory. It's up 103%. So when you have minimum 6 and up months of inventory, that means it's actually going to read as a buyer's market, meaning there's going to be more sellers and less buyers, in which that this graph shows. There's probably instances where there's less inventory, as you experienced in the fall, where less people are going to list their homes, mainly because approaching the whole fall and winter market. However, single family homes in West Hollywood are in the luxury market. There's a lot of them that are in that realm. I don't think there's many, maybe on Waring or maybe those lots that are like maybe 3,000 square feet. You might have some cheaper homes, but there's going to be a lot of homes that are in the multi-millions, like 2 million, 3 million, and so forth in West Hollywood. So that's going to definitely have a specific buyer and a very specific buyer count as well. However, this probably won't be the same, and this is my prediction in regards to condos. So that's why I decided to do them differently, because they're going to have different data that reflects this information, and it's going to be very specific to that market in of itself. So speaking of condos, let's head over. All right. So we're here. Medium sold price by month is our first graph for condos. So it's down 1% from last March of 2019 to last month. As you can see here, there's definitely healthy growth of appreciation over the course of the last 12 months. However, we do know single family homes appreciate more than condos, but it's still inching up there and it's still growing, which is, it's good for you sellers. All right, we're moving to the next one. So medium for sale versus medium sold. So again, these are condos in West Hollywood. There's some luxury condos too, which I'm sure that this is what this part is reflecting in regards to those conversations. You know, again, there's a specific type of person that's going to buy a luxury condo as opposed to those that are buying single family homes. Maybe they travel a lot and so forth. But yeah, I usually like to see this information in regards to the list price versus what's sold price in regards to as a whole, because usually there's discrepancies in regards to how a property should be listed and what a buyer's willing to pay for. Sold properties by month. The number of sold properties is down 3%. So it's only down 1 unit. So it's almost the same as last year. But again, it's going to be interesting moving forward into the future and looking back from whether it be May or June. As I mentioned in the single family home data that we were looking at, that we're probably going to be experiencing a winter holiday market where everything's just going to calm down, but things are still going to move regardless. All right. Under contract properties by month is down 41%. This makes sense. I presume this only because, again, we've all, as a nation and as a planet, have kind of put the foot off the gas altogether with everything. It'll be interesting if it spikes up back in, if we go into May and look back on the data in April. But other than that, we'll wait. Leave me a comment. New properties by month. This is one of the most fascinating graphs that I always try to look out for. We'll hit the 23 number and we'll click the units. So there's 43 new listings that hit the market. So there's 43 new listings that hit the market last month. So there's 43 sellers that are like, yes, I want to sell or I need to sell. And it's the same as last year's of April's. So like the average altogether is around in like, you know, late 40s. Market's still moving. For sale properties is down 20%. Essentially, conversations are being had whether or not to stay in the market or to pull off, and this is what this map is reflecting. It's down by 39 units as from March of 2019. Again, it'll be interesting looking back from the future, back in June. Expired properties by month is up 94%. Again, this is agent related, not necessarily COVID-19 related. Expired properties is when you have an expired listing contract. We'll just skip this. The next one is supply and demand. So number of for sale properties down 20%, number of sold properties down 3%. From March year over, it seems that supply has decreased, but the demand is steady in and of itself, only because there was only 1 unit difference from March 2019. However, there are some months moving in that we'll be meeting, like in April, May, and July, where there were more units that sold. Again, it's going to be interesting seeing how people perform during this whole crisis. We'll hit the next graph, which is the average days on market by month. It's up 5%. It looks reasonable for condos. I feel like the next few months, this is what we're going to be seeing, is that more days in the market for these homes, only because financing is becoming more strict in regards to their lending procedures. And yeah, we'll see. Hit the last graph, which is month supply of inventory. It's up 20%. Altogether, it seems steady. There's an outlier in regards to May. However, when you have 4 to 5 months of inventory, it's still a seller's market. It's going to be interesting moving forward and looking back at it all in regards to how the market performs and if buyers are still participating and if sellers are still going to be listing. Back up here, we saw that new properties, that 43 sellers decided to list their properties last month. So if you have any questions, folks, about the data or you have any theories, feel free to drop me a comment, or perhaps you have other areas of interest that you'd like me to do a video on. Feel free to also leave me a comment with what you'd like to see. I would love to do a video for you folks. Other than that, thank you again and see you next time. Hey folks, thank you so much for watching Selling with Teo. If you enjoyed our content, feel free to press the subscribe button. And if you have any questions, comments, or additional topics you'd like to discuss, feel free to drop me a message as well. Other than that, see you next time.